She stood frozen behind the study door, as the man she called her fated mate destroyed her in a single sentence. Alpha, low voice inside the room. I never wanted her as my mate. A silence followed, heavier than death. Then the sound of gold scraping wood. A ring, sliding off her finger. And falling onto the door handle. She didn't cry. She didn't knock. She walked away from her Alpha, and the bond that was never truly his. The day the bond broke. The Blackridge Pack estate was silent that evening, too silent for a place ruled by an Alpha. Rain pressed softly against the tall glass windows, sliding down like broken tears. Inside the mansion, every hallway smelled of polished wood, old bloodlines, and authority. And her. Luna Seraphine Vale. The Alpha's chosen mate. Or so she believed. She stood barefoot in the corridor outside the Alpha's private study, holding a small velvet box in her trembling hands. Inside it was a peace offering, a silver-threaded ceremonial cloth she had woven herself, marking their 1-month bond anniversary. Her wolf stirred uneasily inside her chest. Not fear. Warning. From inside the study, she heard voices. Low. Male. Familiar. Alpha Kale Blackridge. And another voice, older, sharper. She shouldn't have stopped. But she did. Inside the study, Kale stood by the fire, his posture rigid, his eyes unreadable. The flickering flames carved shadows across his face like war markings. You are bound to her, the elder said firmly. The council approved this union. Kale's jaw tightened. Then came the sentence that shattered everything. I never wanted her as my mate. Silence. Even the fire seemed to hesitate. Seraphine's fingers loosened around the velvet box. Inside her chest, something cracked, not loudly, but deeply, like a chain snapping inside her soul. The elder spoke again, quieter this time. The bond is sealed. Kale turned his face away slightly, as if even speaking her name was inconvenient. Then it is a mistake I will endure, he said coldly. Outside the door, Seraphine stopped breathing. Her wolf whimpered. Not in pain. In rejection. She slowly lifted her hand. On her finger was the mate ring, golden, warm, pulsing faintly with the Alpha bond. The symbol of forever. Her fingers trembled. Then she removed it. No tears yet. Only silence. She placed the ring gently onto the study door handle. It spun once. And stopped. Like her life. Inside, Kale did not notice. Or perhaps he did. And chose not to care. Seraphine stepped back. One step. Then another. Each one heavier than the last. The mansion corridors stretched endlessly as she walked away from him, from the bond, from the future that had never truly been hers. The rain outside intensified. As if the sky itself mourned a lie. By the time she reached the gate of the estate, her wolf finally howled inside her chest. But she did not return. She did not break. She simply whispered. If I was never wanted, then I will never stay. And she walked into the storm. The night the Luna disappeared. The storm did not ease. It followed her like a curse that refused to let go. Seraphine Vale walked for hours beyond the Blackridge borders, each step pulling her further away from the only life she had ever known. The forest outside the Pack estate was ancient, trees twisted like sleeping giants, roots exposed like veins across the earth. And the deeper she went, the more the bond in her chest began to fade. Not vanish, but fracture slowly, like a broken seal refusing to fully release. Her wolf was quiet now. Too quiet. Not healed. Just, numb. Seraphine finally stopped when her legs gave out beneath her. She collapsed beside a fallen stone altar buried in moss and wild ivy. The symbol carved into it was old, older than Blackridge, older than the council itself. A forgotten marker of rejected mates. A place wolves came when they had nowhere else to die. Rain poured over her face as she lay there, staring at the sky. No tears came. Only silence. Only emptiness. And then, a sound. A growl. Low. Close. Her instincts snapped awake instantly. Seraphine forced herself upright, backing against the stone as shadows shifted between the trees. Eyes appeared. Not one pair. Many. Glowing amber. Rogue wolves. Unclaimed. Banished. Feral. Her wolf stirred weakly inside her chest. We are too weak. Seraphine swallowed hard. Stay back. A larger figure stepped forward from the darkness. Not like the others. He was not feral. He was controlled. Powerful. And dangerous in a different way. Tall. Broad-shouldered. Covered in a dark traveling cloak soaked from rain. His eyes were silver, not amber like rogues, not gold like pure alphas. Silver meant something rare. Something unstable. Something exiled. He tilted his head slightly. Blackridge scent, he said quietly. Seraphine stiffened. He could smell it on her. Even now. Even after she left. I'm not going back, she said immediately. A faint pause. Then. I didn't ask you to. That confused her. Most rogues would have attacked already. But this one didn't move. Instead, he studied her like she was a puzzle he had seen before and survived. You're bleeding from the bond break, he added. Her hand instinctively pressed against her chest. He was right. There was blood, not physical, but spiritual. The broken mate bond was tearing her internally, draining her strength. Seraphine grit her teeth. I said I'm fine. A humorless exhale came from him. No one survives a rejected alpha bond alone. The words landed too accurately. Too painfully. Seraphine looked away. Thunder cracked above them. For a moment, neither spoke. Then the rogues behind him growled impatiently. He smells like Blackridge, one muttered. Kill her and take what she has. The cloaked man raised one hand slightly. Instant silence. Even the rogues obeyed him. That alone told Seraphine everything. He was not just a rogue. He was something worse. A leader without a pack. A king without a throne. He stepped closer. Seraphine tensed, ready to run. But her body betrayed her. Weak, drained, still recovering from emotional collapse and bond rupture. He noticed immediately. You can't run, he said calmly. I can try. You can, he agreed. But you won't survive the second mile. A pause. Then he crouched slightly, bringing himself closer to her level, but not invading her space. I'm not here to claim you. That sentence made her freeze. Every instinct expected it. Every alpha. Every rogue. Every monster. But not this. I don't want a broken mate, he added. That should have hurt. But instead, it confused her. He watched her carefully. You're something else, he said. What does that mean? She snapped. A faint flicker in his eyes, almost like recognition. Nothing. Yet. Another silence. Then he stood. You can die here, he said simply. Or you can walk. Seraphine laughed bitterly. Walk where? He turned slightly, looking deeper into the forest. Away from Blackridge. That was all he said. No promises. No manipulation. No claiming. Just direction. And for the first time since she left the mansion, Seraphine hesitated. The journey begins. She didn't trust him. But she also didn't trust the forest. So she followed. Not behind him. Not beside him. Far enough to keep distance. Close enough not to die alone. The rogues trailed behind them at a distance, like wolves watching a moving mystery they weren't allowed to touch. Hours passed. The storm softened into mist. Seraphine's body weakened more with every step. The broken bond was draining her faster than she expected. Each heartbeat felt heavier. At some point, her vision blurred. She stumbled. The cloaked man caught her before she fell. Instant reflex. Strong grip. Controlled. Seraphine immediately tried to pull away, but her strength failed her. You're burning out, he said quietly. I said I'm fine. You're lying badly. I don't need help. A pause. Then he spoke softer. You don't need help, he agreed. You need survival. That distinction silenced her. He adjusted his cloak and looked at her properly for the first time. You have a name, he asked. She hesitated. Seraphine. Something changed in his expression. Just slightly. Like recognition. Like memory. But it vanished quickly. I'm Caliph, he said. Her breath caught slightly. The name sounded similar to. No. Impossible coincidence. She pushed the thought away. Caliph released her gently. You'll rest when we reach shelter. I didn't agree to shelter. He glanced at her. You're still talking. That's agreement enough. The ruined sanctuary. By midnight, they reached an abandoned stone structure deep in the forest. It was half collapsed, covered in vines, ancient carvings barely visible under moss. A forgotten pack sanctuary. Caliph stepped inside first. Seraphine hesitated at the entrance. Something about the place felt familiar, in a way she couldn't explain. Like memory without memory. Inside, the air was dry enough to rest. Caliph lit a small flame using flint, no magic, no display of dominance. Just survival skill. Seraphine sat near the wall, keeping distance. Caliph observed her quietly. You were marked, he said suddenly. Her head snapped up. I wasn't marked. He tilted his head slightly. Not physically. Bond marked. Her hand instinctively went to her chest again. You feel it tearing, don't you? He continued. She didn't answer. Because he was right. He sat across from her, not too close. The alpha you were bonded to, he said slowly, he didn't reject you cleanly. Her heart tightened. What does that mean? Calipha's eyes narrowed slightly. It means your bond wasn't severed properly. Seraphine froze. That's impossible. It's not. Silence fell again. Rain tapped softly against broken stone above them. Caliph leaned back slightly. If the bond was forcefully suppressed, he said, it will eventually turn into something worse. What? He looked at her directly. A bleed bond. The words meant nothing to her. But the way he said them, made her stomach drop. It will consume you from the inside, he added. Slowly. Seraphine whispered, can it be stopped? Caliph didn't answer immediately. That silence was answer enough. Seraphine stared into the firelight, her reflection trembling in the flicker. Everything she thought she escaped was still inside her, and somewhere deep in the forest. Something was beginning to wake inside the broken bond she left behind. Not love, not loss, but something far more dangerous. When the Alpha felt the bond break, the Blackridge estate did not sleep. It never did. Even in silence, it breathed with power, old walls soaked in dominance, authority, and the unspoken rule that nothing within them could fall out of order. But that night, something did. The first sign. Alpha Cale Blackridge stood alone in his study. The same room. The same fire. The same silence. But something was wrong. He noticed it before he understood it. A pressure. Not physical. Not emotional. Something deeper, beneath instinct, beneath thought. He frowned slightly, loosening his collar. The bond mark. It was unstable. That made no sense. Mate bonds did not behave unpredictably. They were either present or severed. Yet this felt like a thread being pulled from both ends. He pressed 2 fingers to his temple. A faint ache pulsed behind his ribs. Seraphine, he muttered without meaning to. The moment her name left his lips, pain struck. Sharp. Sudden. He staggered back half a step. The fire in the hearth flickered violently, as if reacting to his internal imbalance. Cale's wolf stirred immediately. Unsettled. Alert. Something is wrong. That thought was rare. Cale did not experience wrong. He created order. He controlled outcome. He did not suffer uncertainty. Yet now, uncertainty was inside him. The council interruption. The study doors opened without knocking. Only one group in the Blackridge pack dared that. The Elder Council. 3 men entered, cloaked in ceremonial black, their presence heavy with authority. Alpha, the oldest one, said carefully, "We felt the shift." Cale didn't turn. What shift? Silence followed. That alone was answer enough. The second elder stepped forward. The mate bond. Cale's jaw tightened. "I have no mate bond issues." The elder hesitated. "Then why," he said slowly, "did the entire pack feel a fracture at midnight?" Cale finally turned. His silver blue eyes were colder than usual. "Explain." The third elder spoke this time. "The bond between you and Luna Vale, it destabilized." Cale's expression hardened. "That's impossible." But even as he said it, another pulse hit his chest. Harder this time. He exhaled sharply. The elders noticed immediately. "You feel it too," the first elder said quietly. Cale said nothing. Because denial was becoming harder to sustain. The memory flash. Without warning. A fragment of memory hit him. Not his memory. Hers. A door. A voice. His own voice. "I never wanted her as my mate." Cale's breath stopped. For half a second, the study vanished. The fire vanished. The elders vanished. All that remained was the echo of those words. Reflected back into him like a curse. His fingers clenched instinctively. "What was that?" he growled. The elders exchanged glances. "The bond echo," one said cautiously. Cale's eyes narrowed. "That's not supposed to happen." "It does," the elder replied, "when rejection is not fully accepted by both sides of the bond." Cale's jaw tightened. "She accepted rejection," he said firmly. The room went silent. Then, The eldest elder spoke carefully. Did she? That question lingered too long. Too sharp. Cale didn't answer. Because for the first time, he wasn't sure. The Luna's absence. Another pulse hit him. Stronger. This time, Cale actually stepped back from it. A hand pressed briefly against his chest. His wolf growled inside him. Restless. Agitated. Not anger. Not dominance. Something else. Loss. Cale didn't understand loss. He didn't experience attachment in the way others did. Seraphine Vale had been a political bond. A controlled alliance. A necessity. That's what he told himself. That's what he believed. Until now. Because the bond wasn't just unstable. It was thinning. Like something being pulled away from him. Far away. Outside the pack lands. Elsewhere, the ruined sanctuary. Deep in the forest. Seraphine Vale sat near the dying fire. Her hand trembled slightly over her chest. The same chest Cale had just felt fracture from afar. Calith watched her silently from across the stone floor. You feel it too, he said. Seraphine swallowed. I feel like something is pulling me apart. Calith nodded once. That's the bond reacting. She looked up sharply. I thought it was broken. Calith's gaze darkened slightly. It's not broken. A pause. Then. It's waking. Seraphine froze. What does that mean? Calith didn't answer immediately. Instead, he stood slowly and walked toward the ruined archway of the sanctuary, looking out into the forest. When he spoke, his voice was lower. Some bonds don't end when rejected. Seraphine's heart tightened. They evolve. Back at Blackridge. Cale suddenly turned away from the elders. The pain in his chest intensified again. This time sharper. More emotional. Unwanted. He clenched his fist. Stop it, he muttered. The elders stiffened. Alpha. Get out. The command was instant. Absolute. They obeyed. But before leaving, the eldest elder added quietly. If she dies out there. Cale's wolf surged violently at the words. A warning. A reaction he didn't expect. The elder finished carefully. The bond may not survive you either. The door closed. Silence returned. But it was no longer calm. Cale stood alone in the study again. Yet for the first time. It didn't feel like his. It felt empty. The first true realization. Cale walked slowly to the study door. His hand paused just before touching it. Something compelled him. Something he couldn't name. He opened it. The corridor beyond was quiet. But his gaze dropped instantly. To the handle. A ring. Golden. Mate bond insignia. Cold now. No longer glowing. No longer alive. Just abandoned. Cale stared at it. For a long moment, he didn't move. Then slowly. He picked it up. The moment it touched his skin. Pain shot through him. Not physical. Emotional. Real. For the first time in his life. Alpha Cale Blackridge felt something crack inside him. And somewhere deep in the forest. Seraphine Vale's chest responded with the same fracture. The Alpha who never wanted her. Started to search. The Blackridge War Room had not been opened in years. Yet that night, the doors slammed open. Alpha Kale Blackridge walked in alone. No council. No guards. No ceremony. Just silence trailing behind him like a warning. The massive stone table inside was carved with old pack territories, lands, borders, alliances, and exile zones. Kale placed the golden mate ring at the center of it. It rolled slightly before stopping. Like it refused to accept stillness. His jaw tightened. Something about it was wrong. Not the ring. Not the bond. But what it meant. The decision he didn't plan to make. Kale stared at the map. His wolf was restless again. Not because of threat. Because of absence. Seraphine Vale was no longer within Blackridge territory. That should have meant nothing. She was rejected. Dismissed. Political closure. End of discussion. But the bond did not behave like an ending. It behaved like a wound left open. And Kale hated unresolved things. That was the excuse he used. Not concern. Not emotion. Control. He told himself that as he grabbed his coat. "You are not going after her," one of the guards outside the war room said cautiously. Kale didn't stop walking. "I am retrieving what is destabilizing my pack." The guard hesitated. "Alpha, she is not a threat." Kale paused just long enough for his voice to drop. "That is not what I said." And then he walked out. The forest becomes a hunting ground. The Blackridge forest border was marked with iron stones and ward sigils. Kale crossed them without hesitation. Instantly, the atmosphere changed. The deeper forest was older, wild magic territory. Unclaimed lands where laws weakened. Where rogues thrived. And where broken bonds became dangerous. Kale stopped briefly. His chest tightened again. A faint echo. Not pain this time. Direction. His wolf turned its head instinctively. This way. Kale frowned. He had never followed instinct blindly before. Yet now. He moved. Fast. Controlled. Predatory. The alpha who ruled an entire territory was now tracking something he could not see. A mate who was supposed to be irrelevant. Elsewhere, Seraphine changes. Seraphine stood outside the ruined sanctuary. The sky had cleared. Moonlight poured through broken branches above her. She was no longer the same woman who left Blackridge. The bond fracture had changed her body. Changed her wolf. Changed her scent. Kaleth stood a few steps behind her. "You feel stronger," he observed. Seraphine looked at her hands. "I feel different." Kaleth nodded once. "That's the bleed bond stabilizing." She turned sharply. "Stabilizing sounds like healing." "It isn't healing," he corrected. "It's adaptation." That word made her uneasy. Before she could respond, her chest pulsed. Hard. She gasped slightly, stepping back. Kaleth reacted instantly. His head snapped toward the forest. "So he's closer than I expected," he muttered. Seraphine frowned through the pain. "What are you talking about?" Kaleth looked at her. "The alpha you left." Her heart tightened. Kale. Even thinking his name now felt different. Not love. Not hatred. Something in between that made her angry. "I don't care where he is," she said sharply. Kaleth studied her. "You're lying again." "The alpha finds the trace." Kale stopped suddenly. His hand brushed against a broken tree trunk. Scratch marks. Fresh. Wolf movement. Not rogue. Not feral. Controlled. His eyes narrowed. She's been here, he muttered. The bond reacted instantly. A sharp pulse. Stronger than before. Cale clenched his jaw. The direction was clearer now. He moved again. Faster. The forest began to shift around him, as if recognizing authority. Even wild wolves avoided his path. Because alpha energy does not need permission. It dominates space. New moon symbol first contact, without seeing her. Seraphine froze. Her body reacted before her mind did. A pressure in the air. Familiar. Dangerous. Calith noticed immediately. He's close. Seraphine turned toward the trees. I don't sense him. Calith's voice lowered. You will. A beat of silence. Then. The wind changed. Leaves shifted. And the forest went quiet. Too quiet. Seraphine stepped back slightly. What is that? Calith interrupted softly. Don't move. Too late. A shadow stepped into the moonlight. The first reunion. Alpha Cale Blackridge stood between the trees. Rain had returned lightly, misting his dark coat, outlining his presence like a storm-given form. His eyes locked immediately onto her. Seraphine Vale. But something was wrong. She was not the same. Her scent had changed. Her posture had changed. Even her wolf felt different. Cale's gaze sharpened slightly. Seraphine. Her chest tightened at his voice. But she did not step forward. Did not soften. Did not break. Instead. She said quietly. You came. Cale frowned slightly. I am not here for you. A pause. Calith watched silently from the side. Seraphine's expression didn't shift. That's good, she said calmly. Because that was what she had expected. That was what she had prepared for. But something inside Cale shifted at her tone. She wasn't broken. Not anymore. The bond reacts again, differently. Cale felt it instantly. The bond pulsed. But not like before. Not pain. Not fracture. Recognition. Stronger. Deeper. Alive. His wolf growled low inside him. This is wrong. Seraphine pressed her hand to her chest briefly. I thought it would stop, she whispered. Cale's eyes narrowed. Stop what? She looked up at him. The feeling of you being inside my chest. Silence. That sentence hit differently. Not dramatic. Not emotional. Real. Cale didn't respond immediately. Because he felt it too. Cale took one step forward. The forest reacted. Seraphine didn't step back this time. Calith shifted slightly behind her. And between them. Something old, unstable, and unfinished. Began to wake fully for the first time. Not rejection. Not acceptance. Something new. Something dangerous. A bond that refused to end. The truth of the bond that was never supposed to break. The forest did not move. Not even the wind. It was as if the entire world was holding its breath between three people, who were never meant to stand in the same place again. Alpha Cale Blackridge. Seraphine Vale. And the stranger who stood between them like a silent blade, Calith. The moonlight cut through the branches above, casting fractured silver across the clearing. And then. The bond pulsed again. But this time, it did not feel like pain. It felt like awakening. Kale steps closer. Kale took one step forward. Then another. Slow. Controlled. But not restrained like before. This movement wasn't political. Wasn't strategic. It was instinct. His eyes stayed locked on Seraphine. She didn't move back. That fact alone disturbed him more than anything else. You changed, Kale said finally. Seraphine's voice was steady. So did you. A silence followed. Kale's gaze shifted slightly, just for a second, to Caliph. Then back to her. I felt the bond fracture, he said. Seraphine let out a quiet breath. That makes two of us. Kale's jaw tightened. It was not supposed to fracture. That sentence landed heavier than he intended. Because for the first time, he didn't sound like an alpha issuing a statement. He sounded uncertain. Caliph speaks the forbidden words. Caliph finally moved. Just a step forward from the shadows behind Seraphine. Not aggressive. Not submissive. Balanced. Controlled. I was wondering when you would arrive, Caliph said. Kale's eyes narrowed instantly. You know what is happening. It wasn't a question. Caliph didn't deny it. I know more than you do, he replied calmly. Seraphine looked between them. Tension tightened in her chest. Stop talking like I'm not here, she said sharply. Both men paused. That alone shifted the energy. Caliph nodded slightly. You are exactly why this is happening. Kale's wolf stirred. Dangerous now. Explain. Caliph looked at Seraphine first. Then Kale. And finally said. The bond between you was not natural. Silence. The forest itself felt colder. Seraphine frowned. What does that mean? Calith's voice lowered. It means it was engineered. Kale's expression hardened immediately. That is impossible. Caliph tilted his head slightly. Is it? A pause. Then he added. Or is it just inconvenient for you to accept? The memory that doesn't belong to Kale. Kale felt it before it happened. A pressure behind his eyes. A fracture in perception. Then. A memory surfaced. Not his. But forced into him through the bond. A chamber. Ancient. Elders gathered. A ritual circle glowing silver. A young Seraphine standing inside it. Smaller, younger, unaware. And him. Standing across from her. Watching. Not resisting. Not choosing. Kale staggered slightly in the present. His hand shot to his temple. What was that? Seraphine noticed instantly. What did you see? Kale's voice dropped. You? But not the present her. Another version. A version before choice existed. Caliph reveals the core truth. Caliph stepped forward again. The Black Ridge bloodline does not form bonds naturally anymore, he said. Kale's eyes snapped to him. That is a lie. Caliph didn't react. It's a truth your council buried. Seraphine's breathing slowed. Caliph continued. The alpha bond you carry is not just mate recognition. He looked directly at Kale now. It is a containment seal. Kale froze. That word didn't belong in mate law. Seraphine whispered, containment. Caliph nodded. You were never chosen because of love or fate. His gaze shifted slightly toward Seraphine. You were chosen because your blood stabilizes his instability. Kale's expression darkened. Enough. But Caliph didn't stop. And he was chosen for you, because he is the only alpha strong enough to hold what you are becoming. Seraphine stepped back slightly. What I am becoming? Caliph finally said it. Something the old Pax tried to erase. A pause. Then. A lunar core vessel. The bond rewrites itself. The moment the words were spoken, the bond reacted violently. Kale's chest tightened sharply. Seraphine doubled slightly as pain and power surged through her at the same time. But this wasn't rejection pain anymore. It was recognition. Something deep inside her wolf awakened fully for the first time. Kale's wolf growled inside him. Not in anger. In instinctive alignment. Kale took a half step forward before he realized it. Seraphine did the same. Both stopped. Breathing heavier. Eyes locked. Kale whispered harshly. This is not possible. But even as he said it, he knew. Something inside him had always known. That she was not random. That the bond was too precise. Too controlled. Too targeted. Seraphine's voice broke slightly. So I was never your mate. I was your prison key. Silence. Kale didn't answer immediately. And that hesitation was answer enough. New moon symbol Kalitha's final warning. Kalith stepped back into the shadows slightly. This bond is destabilizing, because it was never meant to separate, he said. Kale's eyes narrowed. Explain fully. Kalith looked at both of them now. When you rejected her. A pause. You didn't break the bond. He said it clearly. You activated it. The forest went still. Seraphine's breath caught. Kale's expression shifted, just slightly. For the first time in his life. He looked unsettled. End of scene 5. The wind returned slowly. But nothing felt natural anymore. Kale and Seraphine stood facing each other in the clearing. Not as alpha and rejected mate. But as two halves of something older than both of them. Something unstable. Something awakening. Something neither of them had ever agreed to become. And between them, the bond pulsed again. Not breaking. Not healing. Rewriting. The Luna they tried to erase. And the Alpha who finally remembered. The sky broke open. Not with rain. But with light. A silver pulse spread across the forest canopy, like a heartbeat, returning to something long dead. The bond had stopped behaving like emotion. It was now behaving like a system rebooting itself. Seraphine Vale stood at the center of it all, breathing unevenly as lunar energy rippled beneath her skin like living fire. Across from her, Alpha Kale Blackridge didn't move. But for the first time in his life, he was not in control of his own body. The rewrite begins. Kale's chest tightened violently. Not pain. Not rejection. Something worse. Alignment. His wolf roared inside him, not in defiance, but recognition, like something buried for years suddenly remembering its name. Seraphine lifted her gaze slowly. And when their eyes met, the bond activated fully. A glowing silver thread burst into existence between them, visible now to the naked eye, spiraling around their wrists like living chains. Kale staggered half a step forward. This isn't a bond, he said hoarsely. Kalitha's voice came from the shadows. No, he corrected calmly. It never was. Seraphine's breathing sharpened. Then what is it? Kalith stepped closer into the moonlight. A containment seal built from mate genetics. Designed to lock something inside you both. A pause. Then. Something the old packs feared would wake. New moon symbol, the lunar awakens. Seraphine suddenly dropped to one knee. Kale moved instantly toward her, but stopped halfway. Because her body was glowing now. Not wounded. Not broken. Awakened. Silver markings crawled across her arms like constellations, rewriting her skin. Her wolf was no longer silent. It was awake. Fully awake. And it was not alone. Seraphine gasped as memory fragments flooded her mind. Not just pain. Not just rejection. But truth. A forgotten ritual. A bloodline hidden beneath the lunar lineage. A warning carved into ancient stone. When the lunar core vessel awakens, the alpha seal must either bind it, or be consumed by it. Seraphine's eyes widened. No, she whispered. Kale stepped forward again, slower now. What are you seeing? Her voice shook. I wasn't your mate. A breath. I was your lock. Silence swallowed the forest. Kale's final memory breaks. Kale's vision shattered. This time, it wasn't partial. It was complete. He saw himself in the ancient chamber again. But this time, he wasn't observing. He was participating. His younger self standing before Seraphine. A ritual circle burning silver. Elders chanting not for union, but for containment. And he heard his own voice, cold, controlled, obedient. I accept the binding seal. Kale stumbled back violently. No, he growled. That's not, I would never. But the bond reacted instantly to his denial. The silver thread tightened. Both he and Seraphine flinched. Kaleth spoke softly. You didn't choose her as a mate, Kale. A pause. You were assigned as her cage. Wolf faced the breaking point. The bond began to destabilize again. But differently now. Not splitting. Not healing. Collapsing into revelation. Seraphine stood slowly. Her aura was no longer fragile. It was luminous. Dangerous. Kale felt it immediately. For the first time. He was not stronger than her. He was equal. Maybe even less. Seraphine looked at him. And something in her expression softened. Not forgiveness. Not love. Understanding. You hated me, she said quietly. Kale didn't answer. She took a step closer. And I thought I was unwanted. Another step. But we were both used. Kale's jaw tightened. That doesn't change what I said. Her eyes darkened slightly. No, she agreed. It changes what it meant. The wind shifted violently. New moon symbol Kaleth's true identity revealed. Kaleth stepped forward fully now. The rogues behind him appeared briefly in the distance, then bowed their heads. Not to Kale. Not to Seraphine. To Kaleth. Kale noticed instantly. You're not rogue. Kaleth's gaze remained steady. No. Silence. Then. I was the last keeper of the original lunar seal lineage. Seraphine froze. Kale's eyes narrowed. Kaleth continued. I was sent to monitor what happens when the seal breaks. A pause. And it just did. The final choice. The bond between Kale and Seraphine flared violently. Light erupted. The forest shook. Reality itself felt unstable. Kale clenched his fists. What happens now? He demanded. Kaleth looked at both of them. One of two things. He raised one finger. You suppress the bond again, and she becomes what she was before, fragmented, unstable, fading. A second finger. Or. A pause that felt like eternity. You complete it. Seraphine whispered, complete it how? Kalitha's answer was simple. Not as Alpha and Luna. He looked directly at Kale. But a seal and core, fully merged. Kale's eyes widened slightly. And if we refuse? Kalith looked toward the sky. Then the lunar core awakens alone. A pause. And everything built to contain it, burns. The final moment. Silence fell. No wind. No sound. Only the bond pulsing between them like a living heartbeat. Kale looked at Seraphine. Really looked. Not as property. Not as mistake. Not as obligation. But as truth he had refused to see. Seraphine met his gaze. And for the first time. There was no fear in her eyes. Only choice. Kale exhaled slowly. I never wanted a mate, he said quietly. Seraphine didn't flinch. I know. A pause. Then Kale added. But I think I was wrong. Silence. Seraphine's voice softened. About me. Kale shook his head slightly. About everything. The bond flared one final time. Bright enough to swallow the forest. Kale stepped forward. Seraphine did too. And as their hands finally touched, the seal completed itself. Not breaking. Not ending. Becoming something new. Something neither Alpha nor Luna had a name for yet. When the seal chose them both, the forest did not burn. It rewrote itself. Where silver light had erupted moments before, now there was only stillness, heavy, sacred stillness, like the world had just been forced to accept a truth it had been avoiding for centuries. Seraphine Vale stood at the center of it all. But she was no longer only Seraphine. Something inside her had shifted into alignment, like a star finally finding its orbit after drifting too long in darkness. Beside her, Alpha Kale Blackridge opened his eyes slowly. And for the first time since he was born. The silence inside his mind was complete. No wolf screaming. No command echoing. No instinct pulling him in conflicting directions. Just clarity. And her. The new balance. Kale looked at his hands. The silver mark that once symbolized control was gone. Not destroyed. Redefined. Seraphine noticed it too. The seal, she whispered. Kale finished the thought quietly. Is complete. A faint wind moved through the trees. Not wild. Not chaotic. Balanced. Kalith stood a short distance away, watching them with quiet understanding. It stabilized, he said. Seraphine turned to him. Is it over? Kalith didn't answer immediately. Because answers like that were never simple. Finally, he said. It is no longer what it was. That wasn't comfort. But it was truth. The Alpha who stopped controlling. Kale stepped closer to Seraphine. This time, there was no hesitation in him. But also no dominance. No claim. No command. Just presence. Seraphine studied him carefully. You feel it too, she said softly. Kale nodded once. Yes. A pause. But differently. Seraphine frowned slightly. How? Kale's eyes lowered for a moment. Before. I felt like something was being taken from me. He looked at her again. Now I feel like something was finally returned. Silence. Seraphine's expression softened, but not into weakness. Into understanding. You never hated me, she said. Kale didn't deny it. I thought I did. That honesty changed something in the air between them. Not romantic. Not yet. But real. Kalitha's final duty. Kalith turned slightly toward the forest edge. The rogues who followed him were gone now. Dispersed. Released. His role was ending. Seraphine noticed. You're leaving. Kalith nodded. The seal has a stable anchor now. Kale looked at him. You knew this would happen. Kalith didn't argue. I knew the possibility. A pause. Then he added. But not the outcome. His gaze shifted briefly to Seraphine. You are not what they wrote in the records. Seraphine's voice lowered. And what am I? Kalitha's answer was simple. Free. That word lingered longer than expected. Then he turned away. And disappeared into the forest like he had never been there at all. What remains after war? Silence returned again. But it was different now. Not absence. Presence. Kale and Seraphine stood side by side, not touching, not pulling away. The bond between them no longer screamed. It breathed. Slow. Even. Alive. Seraphine looked up at the sky. The moon had shifted. Stronger now. Clearer. Almost watching. I don't know what I am now, she admitted quietly. Kale responded after a pause. Neither do I. Another silence. Then. Seraphine turned slightly toward him. But I know what I am not anymore. Kale looked at her. What? She answered without hesitation. Broken. That word hit something inside him. Not pain. Release. The first choice that belongs to them. Kale stepped slightly closer. Not closing distance. Just acknowledging it. If the bond returns again, he said slowly. Seraphine finished the sentence. It will be different. Kale nodded. Yes. A pause. Seraphine looked at him directly. No cages. Kale didn't hesitate. No cages. That agreement didn't seal anything. But it changed everything. Because for the first time, the bond was no longer forcing them toward fate. It was waiting for choice. New moon symbol final moment. The wind moved again. Soft. Natural. The forest no longer felt like it was watching them. It felt like it had accepted them. Seraphine turned to walk forward slowly. Kale matched her pace beside her. Not leading. Not following. Just moving. Together. Behind them, the ruined sanctuary of old power faded into silence. Ahead. Something unknown waited. Not mate destiny. Not rejection. Not war. Something unclaimed. Something still being written. And as they disappeared into the forest, the bond between them pulsed one final time. Not as control. Not as chain. But as possibility. If this story broke your heart, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more emotional werewolf romance stories filled with betrayal, powerful alphas, rejected mates, and shocking twists. Would you forgive an alpha who said he never wanted you? Tell me in the comments below. Turn on notifications so you never miss the next dark fantasy romance upload. And remember, sometimes the mate bond doesn't break. It awakens.